because the spending bill getting all the attention as the Senate Voterama is underway. But the Trump administration is also racing to finalize trade deals as that July 9th deadline looms next week. So joining us now is Brian Gardner. He's Stifel's Washington Policy strategist. Brian, it's great to have you back on. First, I'm going to start with one big, beautiful bill and the fact that we even have a daytime Voterama in the Senate. How unusual is that?
We only get these every couple of years, so it's not a regular occurrence. But a Voterama is part of the reconciliation process. So we have seen these before. There's also Voteramas as part of the budget resolution, which is a precursor, which we had back in the winter. So these things happen from time to time. They're kind of entertaining to watch for policy wonks, but I don't think we'll see what impact it has on the overall bill when the voting's all finished and what gets added or what gets dropped.
Yeah. And of course, and I guess it's not the fact that we even have a Voterama. It's the fact that there was a break and then they came back to have the Voterama instead of dragging it through the wee hours of the evening. I know that was getting some attention earlier today.
They're just pushing to see if they can get this done, to get one big, beautiful bill signed on one big, beautiful holiday. And that's the ultimate goal here.
Can it happen? What are the sticking points?
I think the sticking point is still Medicaid. I think Emily was discussing this before. I mean, you have the conservatives, the budget hawks on one side who want more spending cuts related to Medicaid. You have moderates who are apprehensive about those cuts and may hold out. Both on the Senate and the House side, there are very narrow margins. My base case is this gets done by the holiday. I mean, I was skeptical until going into the weekend. But if you're a holdout, you're going to be asking yourself, what am I going to stick out for? What am I going to get? And do I want to put up with the wrath of President Trump if I vote against this? We see how he reacted to Tom Tillis over the weekend when Tillis voted against a procedural vote on Saturday. I think there are going to be a lot of Republicans who just don't want to go through that. And they may not like everything that's in the bill. They're going to be apprehensive about a lot of what's in the bill. And at the end of the day, they're going to vote for what's in the bill.
I mean, the bond market seems to be somewhat sanguine right now in terms of what this potentially will add from a debt load perspective. But is there a point at which that could change?
We have been talking kind of in doomsday scenarios for 40 years. People have been concerned about debt and deficits for a very long time, and it hasn't mattered. It's not going to matter until it matters. Are we at that tipping point? Are we at that catalyst moment? I kind of doubt it. I think that's further down the road when we get into closer to 2034, when the trust funds for Medicare and Social Security can't pay out all of their obligations, 100% of their obligations. I think that's when it really gets real. For now, I think the bond market feels comfortable enough about the short-term, medium-term economic outlook in the United States and its ability to service its debt. It gets more challenging in the next decade.
And of course, you have the offset of potentially spurring some economic growth in the middle class here, depending on how all this shakes out in the final details of this bill. Let's talk trade, shall we? We got this July 9th deadline, which may or may not shift for some countries. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent joined me here on this show on Friday and basically said 10 to 12 possible deals waiting in the wings, another 20 that could get negotiated. You could potentially even see that deadline slip for if they felt they were negotiating in good faith. That's a lot of potential countries coming to the table. How do you game it out?
I think we're going to see some extensions. I've always believed that. If we were having this conversation back in April when the pause was announced, I would have said, well, look, you have some very large, complex trading partners, trading arrangements. And rearranging those, restructuring those in 90 days is very difficult. And it's not just tariffs. I mean, people focus on the rate of tariffs, but there are non-trade barriers. Just to give you an example, some countries that block genetically modified foods from being imported into their country. That's a big sticking point for the United States. And so these are issues that are not easily resolved in 90 days. And so I think we're going to get a handful of deals over the next 10 days, and then we're going to see some pauses.
Okay. Anything on the deregulation front we should be watching as well as we move through some of these key dates here over the next couple of weeks?
It's funny because the deregulation story takes place in the background, right? We're talking about the high-profile, big headline stuff with trade and one big, beautiful bill. But the whole time, in the background has been the deregulatory story. We saw a little bit last week in financials with some changes to bank capital rules. I think we're going to see some loosening up of bank M&A. I think we're going to see an increase in bank M&A over the next couple of months. I think we're going to see more of it in energy. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes that it's tougher to talk about because it's not one moment. It's a process over a long time. But it is going on, and I think that is a positive for the markets.